Dr. Emmanuel Manny Hostin, an orthopedic surgeon and husband of The View co-host Sonny Hostin, is accused in December lawsuit fraudulently billing insurance. By the way, this is a Daily Caller story I'm reading. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases.
For more, we go to our chief Sonny Hostin correspondent for a reaction.
Sonny Hostin spent years building her brand as the high priestess of televised morality. Perched at the View table like a courtroom goddess, she never missed a chance to pass judgment on the flawed, the fallen, and the conservative. Her gavel wasn't literal, but her tone carried the weight of a verdict. One misstep, and you were canceled, shamed, and sentenced all before commercial break. She made due process sound like a luxury others didn't deserve. But then karma RSVP, Sonny's picture-perfect image, cracked when news hit that her husband, Dr. Emmanuel Hostin, was named in a $450 million RICO lawsuit. That's not a typo. $450 million. Allegations of inflated medical claims, kickbacks, fraud. It was a scandal. So over the top, Enron's ghost probably went.
Only about 31% of Americans trust our healthcare system. We have a terrible healthcare system. And you know, doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, you know, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life to do.
And it is funny. She is so wrapped up in identity, and she had no idea who she...
And just like that, the queen of courtroom commentary suddenly had nothing to say. Enter Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus, two men who practically salivate when hypocrisy is in season. For years, they've watched The View lob sanctimonious grenades at anyone even loosely connected to a scandal. So when Sonny, the same Sonny who could derail an entire segment over a politician's parking ticket, was linked to a legal saga that looked like a Netflix docuseries in the making, they pounced. With sarcasm sharp enough to draw blood, they turned her silence into a comedy roast for the age. Tyrus didn't hold back. He mocked her poker face as Oscar-worthy. He jabbed at her new role as the silent observer, sipping coffee like it might erase the headlines. Meanwhile, Gutfeld treated the situation like Christmas morning, unwrapping the layers of irony with gleeful contempt. He didn't just attack the scandal. He attacked the silence, the selective outrage, the sudden, let's not jump to conclusions mentality from a woman who built a career jumping to them.
That will go after white America and talk about them like dogs. That doesn't represent our ideals or values for anyone. And get rid of those people, and this will clear up real quick. So do you have to actually look in the mirror and clean up your own backyard and get the racist people out? Because that's who you allowed in. You allowed black racists on TV who could just go all day and say anything about white people. And I guess lo and behold, they forgot that there's a lot of people at home, white people at home during the day, that are not watching your show anymore. So just clean it up.
Yeah, you know, Emily.
And the irony, it was suffocating. This is the same Sonny Hostin who spent years dissecting other people's legal missteps like a forensic analyst on Red Bull. The same woman who lectures viewers on ethics, accountability, and the sacredness of the law. But when the spotlight turned to her own household, crickets, the legal lioness became a mime, nodding politely through segments while Twitter exploded with memes.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sonny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in Sonny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sonny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from...
On The View, the silence was deafening. Joy Behar, normally one accidental microphone bump away from a viral rant, suddenly found the mute button. Whoopi Goldberg, no stranger to moral soliloquies, looked like she just read the lawsuit mid-sessional. The show that once spiraled into chaos over a mispronounced name was now hosting a masterclass in strategic avoidance. Not a mention, not a whisper, nothing. Imagine being a viewer tuning in, waiting for Sonny to address the giant legal elephant doing the moonwalk across her credibility, and instead watching her rearrange her note cards like they held the secrets to invisibility. Meanwhile, on social media, it was open season. Hashtags trended, screenshots circulated. Users dug up clips of Sonny, Cameron conservatives over lesser scandals and played them back with ruthless delight. Every old judgment was now a boomerang, flying back at high speed. The phrase 0 cents courtroom scandal started making the rounds, and Gutfeld latched onto it like a pit bull.
Makes Sunny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by The View's gravitational pull.
Hughes called it a hypocrisy sandwich with irony spread thick, and he wasn't wrong. Because let's be real, if this lawsuit had involved a Republican senator's spouse, Sunny would have needed smelling salts from the sheer force of her own indignation. She'd be quoting President, comparing it to Watergate, and demanding public accountability from anyone within 6 degrees of association. But now she was playing defense without a playbook, and it only got worse. What made this whole saga so electric was the spectacle of The View, a show that practically markets outrage suddenly downshifting into a soft hum. These women once dedicated 20 uninterrupted minutes to dissecting Taylor Swift's breakup, but a $450 million lawsuit linked to a co-host that apparently wasn't in the segment rundown. You don't have to be a cynic to spot the double standard. When your entire public persona is built on holding others accountable, you don't get to vanish when the pitchforks point inward, yet that's exactly what Sunny did. Vanish behind a mug of coffee in a rehearsed poker face, hoping no one would notice the smoke pouring out of her credibility. But the public noticed. Oh, they noticed.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sunny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter. So
Sunny come on his show to talk about accountability. The invite was pure satire, dripping with sarcasm wrapped in smug delight, but it nailed the point. When hypocrisy hits home, the moral compass tends to lose signal, and Sunny, she wasn't just off course, she was spinning. The second Sunny host's name hit that RICO lawsuit, daytime television entered a twilight zone of selective outrage. For a show that once lost its collective mind over a misplaced pronoun, The View suddenly found a newfound appreciation for privacy. The same panel that demands accountability like it's oxygen suddenly acted like the scandal was an urban legend, whispered at Brown. Let's rewind. The lawsuit filed by American Transit Insurance Company was no minor traffic ticket. We're talking $450 million, 0 cents, yes, million, with Hostin's husband named in a wide-reaching conspiracy that included nearly 200 doctors, surgical centers, and allegations of kickbacks disguised as shareholder dividends. It was like The Big Short, but with MRIs and scalpels.
Sure, all that, and the price of butter. Sunny gets the game ball. If it wasn't for her, asking that question, it might have been a closer election. Listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be. This should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last. They call them Hitler, they call these things. America rejected them. And instead of coming back and saying, we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game.
And while social media was setting fire to the hypocrisy, Sunny, she was channeling full-on courtroom mannequin. The once fiery voice of righteous indignation now sat frozen behind a mug, arms crossed tighter than a non-disclosure agreement. Normally, she'd leap at the chance to dissect legal documents on air. Now, even a vague mention of fraud had her blinking like someone trying to escape through mental teleportation. Greg Gutfeld saw the opportunity and pounced like a media-trained tiger. Or Gutfeld, he didn't just mention it. He constructed an entire comedic opera out of it. The hypocrisy, the silence, the Olympic-level pivoting. His segment wasn't news. It was therapy for viewers sick of media double standards. While Sunny clutched her coffee like it might erase the headlines, Gutfeld was hosting the roast of the year. And then there was Tyrus. If sarcasm were a weapon, Tyrus came fully loaded. He mocks Sunny's legal credibility like it had just been auctioned off on eBay. She gives more legal takes than Judge Judy on Red Bull, he quipped. But suddenly she's mute. Funny how due process becomes sacred when your husband's in the hot seat. His deadpan takedown was devastating.
End of time. You're right. Anytime she says something stupid, I'm going to go, slave owner. Kat, just watched that. That's the second time I've watched that. She was tipped off beforehand, right? Because they had to tell her before, so she had time to regroup. They wouldn't just surprise. Really? You think? No?
I don't know. I feel like she could have maybe done better. Okay, here's the thing. One thing, and I would have even actually not give her any is she said, well, like, I guess that's just what they did back then.
Yeah.
She should have followed that up with saying something along the lines of, and I understand that that's a departure from the way I've talked about this before.
You don't need to find Trumpers. You need to fire your race baiters.
Yeah.
You need to fire the two races. You've had people. You had a McCain on there. You've had people on there before, and you ran them off. Mm-hmm. So the racist ones who want to stick to this, Whoopi and Sonny, and was it Bette Midler? What's her name? Broke ass Bette Midler. Fire them and bring people in. Maybe you could get McCain to come back.
He didn't just poke the bear, he handed it a subpoena. What made it worse was The View's total media blackout. Not a word, not a passing reference. They could spend 15 minutes debating Taylor Swift's concert lighting, but a $450 million 0-cents legal scandal involving a co-host, poof, gone. Journalistic curiosity died quietly in that studio, and viewers noticed Twitter, or X if you're corporate, exploded. Clips resurfaced of Sonny tearing into public figures with all the mercy of a shark in a kiddie pool. Politicians, spouses, random influencers, no one was safe from her wrath. But now that the accused lived under her own roof, suddenly the Constitution mattered again. Due process, privacy, nuance, all the things she forgot to apply to anyone else. This wasn't just a bad look. It was a credibility catastrophe because when you preach justice with that much gusto, people expect consistency. You can't spend years turning political opponents into punchlines and then plead the fifth when your family headlines a $500 million lawsuit. The double standard was so loud it practically screamed through the screen. The View's co-host didn't help matters. Joy Behar, who once shouted over a guest for daring to cite a court case she hadn't read, was suddenly more subdued than a courtroom stenographer. Whoopi Goldberg, usually quick with a morality monologue, sat this one out like someone whose teleprompter got accidentally wiped. The silence wasn't professional. It was strategic and painfully obvious. Meanwhile, in the background, the lawsuit spiraled into full chaos. News outlets ran headlines with phrases like kickback scheme, bogus billing, and financial fiasco. The accusations painted a picture of a sprawling network of doctors milking the insurance system, and Hostin's name sat right in the middle of it. His stake in a surgical center was allegedly used as a vehicle for fraud, a business model so tangled it made crypto look legitimate. Sonny's camp naturally went on the offensive. She labeled the lawsuit a media stunt, dismissed it as frivolous, and even threatened a $5 million 0-cents countersuit for defamation. In other words, she did what any TV legal expert does when the spotlight burns a little too bright. She blamed the messenger.
That's not what I read. The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. Worse, if your name has the word sun in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years.
Mark Gergo, celebrity attorney and firebranding chief, joined the host and defense squad, calling the allegations absurd and the plaintiff's legal strategy laughably scattershot, which might be true or might just be very expensive PR. Still, the damage was done. For months, Sonny's segments on The View carried the tension of a hostage video. Every time a topic even hinted at legal misconduct or financial ethics, viewers leaned forward, waiting for the moment she'd flinch, twitch, or break character. She didn't. But the silence was louder than any rant she ever delivered. And of course, Gutfeld and Tyrus kept the fire stoked. They weren't just mocking Sonny. They were mocking the system that allowed her to sit unchallenged, unaccountable, and uninterrupted. They called out the mainstream media for playing favorites, for soft ping scandals when the target votes blue, and for the cowardice of letting one of their own slide without a single question. Because let's be honest, if this were Kay McKinney's husband, The View would have turned it into a week-long miniseries. They'd have PowerPoints, guest attorneys, maybe even a dramatic reenactment. But when the story hits their own co-host, it's suddenly too complicated for daytime.
She is shaming descendants of this. Will she continue to do that when she is now one of them, Dana? And it is funny. She is so wrapped up in identity, and she had no idea who she was.
Well, now we understand why she always makes Whoopi get the coffee.
So here we are, the great media contradiction playing out in real time. Sunny Host, once the self-appointed judge of America's conscience, now hiding behind coffee mugs and cutaway shots. The View, once loud and righteous, now quieter than a tax shelter. And Goodfeld and Tyrus, they're just getting warmed up. Because in the court of public opinion, hypocrisy is the real crime. And this case just went to trial. Just when Sunny Host might have thought the courtroom chaos couldn't get more surreal, it did. In a stunning twist that even Law & Order writers would call too dramatic, the $450 million 0 cents lawsuit against her husband evaporated, vanished. Poof. The very company that dropped the legal nuke, American Transit Insurance Company, suddenly backed off, not with a whisper, but with a legal white flag, withdrawn with prejudice, apology included. And get this, they agreed to pay the invoices they originally claimed were fraudulent. You can't make this up for Sunny. It should have been a vindication moment. She could have walked back into the View like a courtroom phoenix, sipping triumph out of that oversized mug, but that's not what happened. Because even though the lawsuit was dropped, the reputation damage had already detonated, and the public isn't so quick to forget the silence, the squirming, and the sudden discovery of respect for due process. Let's break it down. The insurer admitted that Hostin was only named because of a partial ownership stake in a surgical center. That's it. Not because of his medical practice, not because of any active fraud. Their words, not ours. In short, the $450 million nightmare was more of a legal shotgun blast than a sniper shot. Broad, sloppy, misguided.
Anna went in a different direction. But I love the fact that, you know, Manny is younger and he's
How
very...
much younger is he?
Just a little bit.
He's like 1 year, isn't he?
Like a month or a year or 10 years?
No, 5 years.
It's more than a year.
Oh.
Anyway, it's not about me. I think I think that it's very helpful that he's handy, and when we travel, I'm not picking up any bags. He's the one that's hefting them overhead. He throws the garbage out.
Right.
He does the heavy stuff.
But one thing is certain, the moral gavel she once slammed so freely, it's cracked now. And every time she delivers a legal take from that stage, viewers will remember the time she had nothing to say when it mattered most. Because accountability isn't just for other people. Sometimes karma calls collect. And if you've spent your life judging others, you better believe it's bringing receipts. If you like this video, then subscribe,